Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, depending on where you are calling from or listening in. I want to send a thank you out to everyone who is connecting today. My name is Anthony Ray. I'm one of the immigration attorneys here at Ray Law International, and I want to thank you for joining the Ray Law Immigration channel and our live stream today. There's a lot to cover. We're going to dive in just a minute or two. We're going to give people more time to get connected. So there's so much going on. If you're paying attention to U.S. immigration law, you'll know that there's been changes weekly, multiple changes weekly, and it's going to be very challenging for everyone to stay on top of things. However, immigration law is important to the global system, the global network for relationships and family, and immigration is not going to go away. It may become tougher. However, you can expect that we're going to be here and guide you and help you navigate this new and chaotic immigration system that we're seeing being put into place. All right, we'll just give everyone another 2 minutes or so to come on in, get connected. Thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Anthony Ray, one of the attorneys here at Ray Law International, and speaking with you today on the Ray Law International channel here. All right. So I know it's still early here or well, not really early, but it's the afternoon. We do expect to see more immigration changes throughout this week, throughout this month, and into April. So keep up to date. We're going to be here to help you stay up to date, but also if you need help and guidance to help you and your family or your business guide through this immigration system, we're here to help. All right. All right. So today we really want to just briefly touch on things, but let me get started. With today's discussion will center on what you as the employer can keep what you as an employer can do to keep your foreign national employees in the US and working legally. There's a lot of changes going on. We're going to touch on base, give you a few things you can do. In our last live stream in February, we talked about alternative visa categories. Feel free to check that out to see if your L, E, or H is not working, what alternative visa categories can you use? But unfortunately, we have not seen changes to the immigration system to make it more efficient and more beneficial to businesses. Unfortunately, there appears to be no plan whatsoever to make U.S. immigration work. Just the opposite. It looks like they're doing everything to shut it down and keep everybody out, which I don't know why that is. We don't know their plan. We don't know their goal. However, because we're seeing the opposite, because we're seeing that you can expect, as it has already become, more challenges to bring your foreign employees to the United States and to keep them here working legally. Now, in the midst of the multitude of changes, challenges, restrictions, and lawsuits, it is imperative that you remain in touch with your immigration attorney. I recommend that you touch base with your immigration attorney twice a month with all the executive orders and policy changes that are going into effect. We'll talk about a few today, but you just got to stay connected more so than before. You don't want to go through the process, go through all the interviewing, get the right candidate, all to find out that policies have changed so that person is no longer eligible. We have a long road ahead of us, so let's get started with a brief discussion of today's topic. And remember, if you have any questions, please, I encourage you, put your questions in the chat box. It could be on this topic that we're talking about today to help employers, or it may be on a different topic. Feel free to just write that question in there. If I can't get to it, we'll come right back to it. So what are some of the recent changes we're seeing, I would say, in the last few weeks? the first thing we're seeing is there's a lack of due process and a lack of transparency in our U.S. immigration system. As you can see, people are just getting picked up and deported, and no one knows what's happening. Court orders are being disregarded, and the U.S. CIS, or Immigration Service, our government, is not being transparent. That's a new thing. This is very concerning. There's a lot of lawsuits and actions being taken so that there is due process and that there is transparency in the immigration process. So we hope that in the months to come, this will change. Hopefully, in a few months, we can say there is due process for everybody um, here in the United States, and that there is transparency between the federal government and the processes that we're taking our clients through. The next, we're seeing an attack on immigration attorneys, and more so, we're seeing an attack on the legal systems and attorneys in all areas. So it's very important that you, the employer, to realize, hey, it's not just the foreign national being attacked. It's not just the companies being attacked. It's also the immigration attorney that's being targeted. So we encourage you, work with your immigration attorney, be transparent, understand that several, I doubt many of the business attorneys are not going to have too much of an issue. However, the government has said that it is looking to sanction, restrict, or do whatever it can to limit our representation of our clients. This is very concerning because when the government makes the process so complicated that one cannot go through it, not having an attorney guide you through that or to fight for the rights in the that the individual has, it's just going to cost the company money. So stay in touch, be prepared. It's going to cost a little, well, it's going to cost more money all around in order for us to fight for our employers, the foreign nationals, so that you can do business and grow your business. Additional change we're seeing is there's a reduction in immigration services and there's a reduction in immigration benefits, especially to refugees. Okay, that's something the people who need it the most, their benefits are being reduced. For example, the medical benefit given to refugees who are fleeing their country to come to the United States and have already been approved. They're just waiting that 1 year before they get their green card. Those benefits have been reduced from 12 months to 4 months. Why they're doing this, no one knows. Whether they're saving money or not, I can't say, but you are hurting the individuals when they only have 4 months of medical care and services rather than the full 12 months so that they can then apply for their green card. And finally, actually, not finally, a couple other major changes that's going to impact employers and how us attorneys, practice. Now, because of these changes in the government not being transparent and not providing due process, we are going to see an uptick in lawsuits against the government to get them to do what they're supposed to and to get them to disclose the information that they need to. However, two things that have happened recently. One, the government is essentially shutting down any information that we can get from the government. So the DHS has recently barred, fired everyone, or put on administrative leave, however you want to call it. The CIS ombudsman has been set aside for 60 days, quote unquote. The OIDO, which is the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman, and finally, the DHS Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. These three organizations, those employees no longer have a job, they're on administrative leave, and the agency does not plan on bringing them back. What does this mean for the employer? This means it's going to be even more difficult, if not impossible, to get information on a pending case or to get information about a pending case. Also, they just did away with civil rights and civil liberties. This means the government is not providing support and taking these sort of rights away from foreign nationals and their spouses, for example, their children, the employers. So these things are very concerning. Please speak with your politician to see what they can do to help reverse this trend. And finally, the biggest news, you may have heard this throughout last week, with the government essentially trying to deport a 500,000 people with the stroke of a pen. As you know, DHS has noticed the termination of the CHNV, which really covers those who are from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. As we all know, things have definitely not improved in those areas, okay? In those countries. And it's so important that we really protect and care for those in need. That's what America used to be about. That's why we fought in 2 world wars and other wars. We care about other people. Nowadays, everything is internationally connected. We care about everyone from around the world, whether they're from Asia, Europe, or the Americas. We are essentially one big family working together, um, growing businesses, moving, living in different countries, and that is crucial. There's no reason that they needed to terminate this. These individuals were legally brought to the United States or are legally granted status to be here because of the conditions and problems in their country. So, as these things change, we need to make sure that we help as many people. Immigration attorneys are inundated with the tremendous amount of work. There's not enough of us out there to represent everybody, but we're trying to do what we can to help them, as many people as we can. So, that being said, we're going to dive into our discussion today. And let's see. Our first one, we're going to look, which we just talked about. What can we expect for upcoming policy shifts and changes? Unfortunately, you know what? We're going to see more restrictions. We're going to be seeing more interrogations into companies. Now, this is very curious. If you fire the people who are supposed to be doing this, how's it ever going to get done? So this is where it seems the administration really hasn't thought out their plan before firing all these people. It seems it would be more prudent in order to keep the people you have and reassign them to roles to meet your needs. However, the government, in all its wisdom, has decided to fire them, but somehow with less or fewer people to try to enforce rules. So, as employers, we do want to stay compliant, but it's going to be interesting to see how the government is able to fulfill these large agenda by with no one working for them, essentially. So, how can you look more into employers? Now, understood, they may try to use AI, but that AI does not solve everything, especially in immigration, where there is no consistency, especially in its decision making and the application. Many of you guys are very well aware. You have employee A that files for their L visa, they get approved. You got employee B with essentially the same education requirements and all the same qualifications, but they don't get approved. And oftentimes you're left scratching your head saying, how can this be? What changed? What happened? And we don't always get a clear response from the USCIS. So those things getting stricter as we see sort of attacking attorneys, seeing where attorneys can be punished or restricted so that we cannot represent our clients is something that we're going to see. And then as we move forward, we just don't know exactly how they're going to limit or control employment-based visas, but it will be interesting. We can expect that to come as we move forward. Some of the new hurdles, the government has already done away with TPS for Venezuelans and many others. We can see and more restrictions on DACA for those who did, you know, get their advanced parole, come back out, and then adjust status through a spouse or a parent. That was great, but that window is quickly closing. Um, Also, on the H4s, spouses did or do have work authorization. We hope that that will stay and continue. Remember, if we remove everyone from the US, there's no one left to do the work. Okay, there's not enough. There's not enough US citizens, Americans, who are available, even if they went into the STEM fields to fulfill these roles. Again, just a heads up, thank you for joining. If there are questions that you have, whether about our topic about what employers can do to prepare for these immigration changes, or if there's some other immigration questions, please go ahead, put that in the chat, and we'd be more than happy to address that even live here on our live stream. Now, the next is what employers can do right now. What can you do right now? I'm going to go over a few things in order to help you figure out, you know, how to prepare the best you can. First, maintain compliance with immigration laws. That's where your attorney is going to come in and help. There's new regulations, policies issued weekly, and you want to make sure that your company stays on top of that. You want to make sure all your employees have proper paperwork. We have one employer go through all the employment documents, update them, make whatever changes so that in the event that there is a Department of Labor audit, they're able to show that they are in compliance. You want to keep up with the changes on immigration law and regulations. You want to follow the visa-specific compliance requirements, changes to LCAs, for example, for H-1Bs and other visa categories, and then the changes to the H-1B itself. This year, we already had our H-1B cap registration. There are a lot of glitches with the system, but they did not extend the filing window, unfortunately. But as we get into the H-1B filing season from April to June, we're going to see what changes are presented to employers. Now, there is very little fraud. However, the administration is using fraud in order to accomplish whatever goals or purpose they would like. Second thing to keep in mind is to implement a robust I-9 compliance program. As I mentioned before, some clients are already doing this. You want to make sure that I-9s are updated. And if they need to be updated with new documents because they have expired, you're going to want to make sure that that's in compliance, not just for foreign nationals, but for all your employees. Next, you want to train HR personnel on proper completion and retention of the I-9 process. And if you're using E-Verify, you want to confirm that the work authorizations for the beneficiary and the company are all up to date and everything is good to go there. The next one is the development of a clear immigration sponsorship policy. Okay, define who qualifies for sponsorship and the company's responsibility. If you know this up front and you're interviewing someone and then they say I need a visa, you're able to assess and move forward with a response to that candidate. But if you don't, there are times when you can reach out to the immigration attorney and we can help you, make that determination. You also want to set expectations for costs, timelines, and employee obligations. You want to communicate the policy clearly to employees and hiring managers, okay, from the HR standpoint. Again, these changes are happening quickly, and then often you'll see a lawsuit that comes up and either pauses it or allows it to proceed. You want to be on the know so that you can move forward and not miss out on an opportunity for your employee and the company. Next, properly classifying workers. Avoid misclassifying employees as independent contractors to prevent violations. There's been a huge shift to get people from independent contractors or to employee statuses where they have to pay taxes and the employer is responsible for them. Next, you want to monitor the visa expirations and renewals. I cannot stress this enough. Look at the visa stamps. Look at the I-94 for employees. But even on the I-94s, you've got to look at that multiple times throughout, I would say, at least twice a month, or set up a system so when the employee does go on a trip, when they return, they automatically present you with an updated I-94. That way you can make sure that all your expiration dates are in line, you're prepared, and if they're in the US, you can file an extension 6 months prior to, or if they need a new visa stamp abroad, they can go ahead and make the appointment. Remember, if you're making appointments abroad with a reduction in staff, there could be extra delays there, okay? Next, you also want to prepare for a government audit or a site visit. Again, if you fire all the people who are supposed to do the investigation, how are they going to come out and, do a site visit? I don't know. The government's going to figure that out. But I do suspect that you're going to, even though the government would like to enforce certain policies and rules, I think the reduction or having insufficient staff is going to prevent them from making any real progress. So here you want to monitor or maintain organized records of visa applications, labor condition applications, the LCAs, and any perm filings. Next, you want to train HR specialists and managers on how to handle site visits from the USCIS Department of Labor or ICE. Just to let you know, for USCIS, they usually give you a notice. They call ahead. Department of Labor, they could just show up at your door anytime, and you need to be ready. ICE, they can definitely show up at your door anytime, and so be ready. Now, finally, things that you can do to get ready is also work with an experienced immigration such as Raylon International. We're here to make sure that your firm is successful, your employees that work for you are protected, and that you're able to service your clients and grow your business. That's sort of the expertise that we're going to bring and communicate. And we do that for many of our clients, and we can definitely do that for you as well. Now, I think those are the main topics that we're going to talk about today. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat in the comments section. Um, if we don't have any questions, I'm just going to wrap up with our last one, understanding the legal landscape. Okay, you have to make sure you understand it's going to be a very anti-immigration landscape. There will be barriers and roadblocks. Okay, you see H-1Bs holders being turned back and sent back home. You're seeing green card holders being held, of course, without due process and without reason. So it is important, it is so important that you be prepared. If you can keep our recommendation, if you don't need to travel, stay put in the US until this sort of settles out over the next year or 2 years. Why do I say a year or 2 years? It just takes that long for these things to go through the court system. Now, there are injunctions that are put in place, but as we have seen from the administration, they're not always following the rules or even listening to the judges. So you as the employer have to go, proceed with the utmost caution and care for your employees. Don't take risk. Send a U.S. citizen abroad so that they can come back. Do what is necessary while we go through the next 2 or 4 years with all these challenges and attacks on immigration. For all you out there, immigration is not bad. It is a very good thing and a huge part of our U.S. economy in order for it to thrive. We bring so many talented people from abroad. It seems a shame to keep that talent and expertise out, which has really just made the United States a mecca for growth and innovation and for expansion. We shouldn't and hopefully will not lose that to other countries out there. All right, so again, for those who are here, my name is Anthony Ray, one of the attorneys I didn't see any questions today. If you have a question for us, please, 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 we'll put that on the screen. Our phone number, please, our Beatrice and the receptionist and every intake process, they are standing by to help you. If you're a company, we can schedule a time for us to introduce who we are, our services, and how we take care of our clients and why our clients really enjoy being with us and have been with us for decades. It's so important to have someone you can trust and who's going to get the job done for you and your company. I want to thank everyone for joining us here on this March live stream here on the Ray Law International channel. We will be having another live stream in April. Look for that notice coming up. It'll be near the end of April. And everyone out there, please, please work hard. Fight the system, but do what is right. Make sure you're in compliance. And we now look forward to another 4 weeks in the changes this government will present to us. Again, thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you guys all next time. Until next time, um, stay educated, stay prepared, and stay on the right immigration path. Bye for now.